2016. This is interviews, music reviews, and more. This is The Hotter Show.
What is up, everybody? We are rolling out of here today in episode 297 of The Hotter Show. I hope you guys are doing absolutely fantastic. Thank you so very much for tuning in and clicking that play button on today's episode of the podcast. I got a really fun episode for you here today that I try to do every single week right here on The Hotter Show. I sit down with my old buddy for the first time in 100 episodes, basically, Mr. Mark Wylie from Maitreya. Now, you guys may remember, if you're longtime listeners of the show, that I had Mark on episode 199 and a half. So 297, that's pretty damn close. So it's kind of fun how he came full circle here. This time around, though, Mark is talking all about his band Maitreya and their brand new album that is coming out, as you guys are hearing this, if you're listening on Thursday, tomorrow, June 25th, the album Hyperreals. And let me tell you, from what I've heard of the singles, it is a banger. And we talk all about the writing and recording process of Hyperreals, some fun stories. We get in depth about the singles that they've released thus far, because obviously, you know, as we recorded this, I didn't hear anything else but the singles, but they're really, really badass. If you are a fan of prog of any shape or form, you got to check it out. Or if you're just a fan of metal and kind of hard rock and stuff like that, you got to check it out. But Mark breaks down kind of the recording process, the writing process, talks a little bit about the talent of some of his bandmates. And one really cool thing, there's two moments that happened during this interview that I want to share both of them. Like, I usually do like a little clip at some point during the week to be like, oh, check out this fun moment from the episode. And usually there's a few that I want to share, but from this interview, there's like 8 or 9 I want to share, but there's 2 in particular, one of which is Mark actually showing off one of the stems from a vocal recording session of one of their songs that their vocalist, he does like a triple harmony. It's insane. Gave me goosebumps. Really cool moment on the show. It was unplanned. He was just like, oh, well, let's just check it out. And he pulled it up for us. So that was really, really fun. And he talks about the singles in depth and kind of we dive into it. And we also talk a little bit about kind of what he's been doing the last year, you know, dealing with the pandemic and everything, and what he's been doing with his solo stuff a little bit. And he treats us to a rather fun, I guess we'll say sneak peek maybe, of him literally jamming out to a cover song that I guess he's been working on. And again, let me tell you, it's a really cool, fun moment, because I don't think that's ever happened in the history of the Hotter Show. So really fun, exciting episode for you today with Mark Wylie from Maitreya. I hope that you guys enjoy. Of course, before we jump in, I want to thank everybody for their support on last week's episode of the show, my chat with Ethan Flynn, doing the music showcase of his brand new record, The Pumpkin Club. Big shout out to Ethan. Thank you so much, buddy, for coming on and letting me share your wonderful album with my listeners. It was a lot of fun. Now, one last quick piece of business before we jump into it. You may notice over here, there's some boxes happening over here. That is because we are getting ready to move again in hopefully the next couple of weeks to few weeks, for sure by the end of July. So I don't know specifically what that's going to mean for the show. I'm going to try and not take any time off this time around. I've decided last time we moved, I took like a month off because it was that was a little bit more of a hectic move this time around. I don't think it's going to be quite as hectic, but we will see. So I'm not planning on taking any time off. I might need to just do audio for a few episodes. I might need to do like some Q&A stuff. I don't know yet. We'll see what happens. We got episode 300 coming up too. So who knows? We will see what happens, but I wanted to just give everyone a little heads up that if I randomly have to take a couple weeks off, that is why, because we are moving from our little not so great area that we currently live into a much, much better area and a much, much nicer apartment. So very excited about that. But all that out of the way, we are ready to jump into my chat with Mark Wylie from Maitreya. Let's get into it. Again, we got Mark Wylie from Maitreya here on the show. Mark, what's up, man? How you doing?
Yo, what's going on? Doing good. Thanks for having me back on the show.
That's a pleasure, man. It's been a minute. We were talking before we started recording. It's literally been, it was February.
100 episodes, yes. 2 years or something.
Something along those lines. It was episode 199 and a half of The Hotter Show was the last time we heard from you. And it's kind of fun and fitting the fact that I'm rounding up on 300 episodes. This will be episode 297. So you're getting in right into the wire there again.
There we go.
That's awesome, man. Well, we got a lot of ground to cover today. Obviously, we're going to talk about Maitreya's upcoming album, Hyperreals, that is coming out June 25th. So very excited about that. It is coming out June 25th tomorrow as you guys are hearing this. So very hyped about that. But before we jump into that, first and foremost, man, what have you been up to the last year and a bit? Obviously, that's a big talking point right now with COVID and all that. Kind of what have you been up to? What have you been doing to keep yourself sane?
Yeah, I've been going through. I think I go through like these phases of different things. So, I think in the winter I sort of hibernate down here and I do lots of writing. So there's probably another Maitreya, probably another full length Maitreya album just like came out of this winter. A big collection of tunes that me and the bass player Liam were working on a lot this winter.
Nice.
When spring hits, I turn into jazz mode and I go on this like really I get into like this really sophisticated music study sort of mode where I'm always trying to like learn new jazz harmony or things like that. So that phase is closed, and I don't know. I think summer's kind of like my drought months. Usually summer's kind of like just sort of like you've kind of like cultivated all the stuff, and now you have to sort of go through and
pick through it, and this sucks, this is awesome, what was I thinking,
or you're on these type of podcast shows and you're sort of releasing the fruits of your labor kind of thing, right? That seems to be the trend. And I've been getting into like chess. That's been a hobby I picked up.
Nice. That's
just like
fun.
It's I don't know, it's fun. I'm not really a big gamer, like as far as like the conventional like Xboxes and
video games
PlayStations go. I'm sure I would, if I if I had it, it would consume my life. So I think there's something similar, just like a little mobile game like chess is intellectually stimulating enough for me to just have a little bit of entertainment here and there.
Mm-hmm. So you're gonna go like full on and do some competitions or anything, or you're just playing it for fun?
I think
you strike me as the kind of guy. Sorry, I was gonna say you strike me as the kind of guy who would totally rocket chess. You just strike me as that kind of guy.
I think if post-pandemic there were like tournaments that were like rated for like my rating is like it's still under 1500, if that means anything. You know what it was that kind of like hit me is, did you ever watch The Queen's Gambit when that came out?
I didn't, but I've heard a ton about it. I'm kind of familiar with what it is.
Yeah, so I don't know if we want to go down this whole rabbit hole, but like
let's go down a rabbit hole, bro. Let's do it.
when I was growing up and my dad taught me chess, I had watched some movies on Bobby Fischer. And Bobby Fischer is like sort of the OG like chess grandmaster, and there's like all these rumors about him, how he would like, it was around the time of the Cold War and they had like sent him to Russia, and I guess that's how Russia and America thought it was the way to fight wars was as a dick measuring contest. It's like who can play better chess. So they sent over
men.
yeah, they sent over. I'm sure there's actually a couple of stories of similar like this. I don't know the full history, but like they sent over Bobby Fischer, and he just started to go insane because of like the whole like this is as far as I know the story, but like just like the paranoia of being like spied on by like Russian undercover spies or agents, and just like the nature of chess being so like moves and moves ahead. I think if you're constantly like in the headspace of like I'm always 3 moves ahead of whatever is happening, just that sort of level of paranoia it's just gonna like make you think things are happening that like are just
because you're thinking like, oh well, and then they could do this, and then I could do this, and then they could come over here, and it's like, whoa, man, relax.
Yeah, so I had been a fan of like chess growing up, and then it just seeing that movie or that series on Netflix was kind of like, oh, like yeah, let's go back to chess. And another thing, like me and Matt in the band, the vocalist, whenever he comes over, we play chess, and like sometimes at shows we'll bring a chessboard, and between shows we'll play. So it was just finally the time of like, I'm gonna sit down and actually like study like theory of chess and like openings and like strategies, and just like go down that sort of nerdy rabbit hole of chess awesome, game.
The fact that we could say that some bands backstage, they're gonna be like, they're hanging out, maybe they're drinking or they're doing whatever, and we can say that Maitreya is in the back playing chess. I don't know why. That just makes me so happy. I think it's the sophistication that your guys' music has. Not that other bands aren't sophisticated, obviously. I'm not saying that, but just like you guys have this certain level of, maybe it's because it's like the prog world. Whenever I think of the prog world, I think of more, how can I say this as politely as possible to other forms of music? Just more like
you can say it's very pretentious.
Yes, maybe not pretentious, but just it's very formal, and it's very. I'm not trying to say that people who play prog are more intelligent. I'm not trying to say that, but I'm kind of saying that, I guess. Oh my lord! What am I saying?
They take the craft, I think, more seriously than the average.
Thank you. That's what I'm trying to say. It's just there's a little more seriousness in the world of prog than there is. I'm leaving that in too, by the way, folks, because I just totally craft on them. It's like some of my favorite genres of music. But my point I'm trying to say is it's just the craft behind prog and the thought behind it. It just, I don't know why, it just makes me so happy that you guys are playing chess. It just seems like that would be kind of right along you guys like have some candles lit and you're being all vibey sometimes, or
totally. You know it.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, you gotta know when you roll up to Maitreya at a show and they're playing chess, it's like, we're gonna get some time signatures here, aren't we?
That's fantastic. I don't know why. It just makes me so happy that you were saying that.
I mean, you're also sitting at a venue for like 3 or 4 hours, and you're playing music for probably like 45 minutes of those. So it's like, well, let's play some games.
Some people might be like, let's bring the Xbox and play some Call of Duty. Like, no, here's Maitreya. We are playing chess, and we are like, it just, I don't know why. It totally fits with the mold of how you guys, how your sound is, which is very well crafted and very articulate and things of that nature. So it just totally fits. That's awesome.
Why thank you.
And I have to say, by the way, before we continue, about your vocal, what was his name again? Sorry, your vocalist?
Maitreya.
Matt, you, my friend, your whole band is in absolutely incredible. And obviously, I mean, you know how highly I think of your talents as well, Mark. But like, obviously, I'd heard Maitreya's stuff before, but listening through like all the singles in a row and stuff, it's like, holy cow. Your vocalist is a very talented cat with his range. It is crazy.
Dude, everyone in the band really stepped up to the plate for this album, and it was a total joy most of the time going through the recording process.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit as far as with the actual recording process and that. When did the whole process kind of start? Because obviously like this wasn't all written and recorded during COVID. Like I think I remember even back when you were on the first time, you guys were kind of talking about slowly getting ready to do something. Yeah,
this album probably took us way too long to do, but I think we learned a lot in the process. So this album is probably like, not even joking, like 4 years in the making. We had songs on this album that were ready by the time we were putting out our first album. So like we're just sort of like in the trend of like, it takes like 4 or 6 months to actually like, once you're done recording, to actually like get everything ready to put it out. So the nature of we're still working on stuff. So we record everything ourselves. So that sort of gives us the luxury of taking our sweet time, which since we don't really have any like, label obligations or any deadlines, we can just like literally tinker away endlessly, which again has its pros and its cons. So like, I think at like the 2-year mark, we had a version of this album like demoed out, and we were going through things and we were just hitting some roadblocks. Like, I think we wanted to record the drums in a more professional way than we did our first album. We recorded the drums in this basement, the last album, and we sort of knew going in that we were going to like sample replace everything. So it was kind of like, let's just get the performance right, and we'll basically keep the room sound, and that's about it. Yeah, just the feeling of being of the room, and that the oomph of being in a real room, not everything just completely. So that's my one thing with sample drums sometimes, where I'm just like, you can tell when it's just they're literally just fully programmed and
I'm just not as much of a fan of it. So I appreciate that you guys can for sure do that on that record.
Yeah, and I think when we were like going through the album, we knew with our sort of the guy we had mixed, we were gonna mix it. We're like, we need someone who can like go in and be surgical and do this kind of thing. And for this album, we're like, no, we don't really want to like be. We want to be. It's funny as I say this. We want to be more like organic with the drums, and yet we were like way more. What's the opposite of organic? Synthetic.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
With all the other elements on the recording, we went way more like digital with it, but we wanted to get a better drum recording. So, basically, I think it was 2019. Oh man, it's got to be 2019. That sounds so weird to say, but the winter of 2019, we recorded drums for the full length for Hyperreals, and then 2019 was actually the year I was doing all my solo stuff. So I think So I think I just like didn't really. I'm sure I have a better justification for this, but I just like wasn't really putting a whole lot of time into the band, so we just never really got around to recording it. Or there was a certain band dynamic at the time where like going into the studio to record is like work. Like we have to actually like grind out this album, right? And there's one more thing, but we're more of like a live band. Like we prefer to like just go out and
I get what you're
live.
saying, yeah.
So like that was a big thing. It's like we really needed like to block off 2 months to just be like every weekend we're going to be recording. And when every other weekend you're like, well, we have a show booked, it's like, how can we get sort of the flow?
Yeah.
It ended up being very hard like that. So we just never really got the ball rolling like that. And the other thing was we actually pre-pro'd everything on guitars and had it done. And then this is actually going to be another funny story. We had everything recorded as if there's a common method of recording this style where you record drums last. So you pre-produce all the guitars. So we literally did all the guitars, assuming that those tones were going to work. And we used those to record the drums. And then our first mix engineer didn't want to use those guitar tones. So we were under the impression that we were going to have to redo all the guitars now to our drums. Now we're doing it more the conventional way of. Yeah. So I think just that vibe of like, we have to do it again. Like, this isn't fun. We've already done this. So that sort of set us back for like a year. And then I don't really know what was the big thing. It was like, we have to get this album done, but we just started grinding it out last spring. And it probably took us 2 to 3 months. Did all the guitar, did all the bass, spent months on the vocals. And probably by the fall, we had everything mixed with our second mix engineer. I don't think we need to go into that story, but we had some fallout with our.
Was that the guy who didn't want to use the guitar tones?
Yeah, I just.
Oh, okay.
It was both of our faults. Like we spent way too when we signed the contract to do the deal, it was like I said, during January 2019. And by the time we had got around to giving him the full album, it was like summer 2020. So it's like, well, things change. So like you can't really expect a contract to last that long. And I thought usually I'm usually pretty sketchy about doing business with friends, like someone who you kind of know on a personal level. So it was just better to sort of cut ties and be like, no hard feelings, but let's
of course
sort of do business with someone that's just more strictly professional, just because it keeps the relationship on a better wavelength.
Mm-hmm. That's better for sure. And the thing is that just kind of made me chuckle with you guys having to redo the guitars. It's nothing against that mix or anything, but just like for you guys to redo guitars, it's like, that is a big deal. So I can understand why you'd be like, oh my gosh, seriously? Like, it's not like if you're playing in like a rock band where you have like 3-minute long songs. Again, nothing against that, but it's just like re-recording that compared to re-recording a 7 to 8 to 6 minute long songs that has super intricate guitar parts. That's a hefty order.
and it gets worse. So
oh no.
There's something I use Ableton for all my like audio work. So there's a really big lesson I learned through this, which I had never encountered before. So kudos to my bandmates for dealing with my major mistake here. But it turns out if you label a channel by the same name, it keeps like a labeling process of like what clips you're using. So whatever happened, I have a channel which I use to record, and then I sort of drag the audio file into its sort of place in the arrangement.
Gotcha.
So I have like a bass channel, but I don't record with the bass channel. I just record on a blank, and I call it tracking. So I had a tracking channel for myself. I had a tracking channel for the bass. I had a tracking channel for the other guitar part for Matt. I had a tracking channel. So what basically happened was the tracking channel labeling process began to override the takes. So there were, obviously with prog metal, we don't record like an entire section sometimes in one take. We have to sort of go in and be sort of surgical with it. So there were times where I'd load up the project and the parts would be all out of place. Like the vocal would be in the guitar or the bass would be in the guitar part because of the labeling process. So we had to redo I had to redo some of my parts a couple times. I think Matt, our guitar player, was completely done, and then I totally fudged one of the songs when I recorded bass. So there were times where like, hey, this album will not end, and we just kept messing it up. So it was tough when you get to that level of like, we're so close to being done. We've already done it numerous times, but I think in the end, like I said, I think this whole album process has been a really good learning experience. And we learn a lot of things, and I think we've got better all around in all those areas, so that it's not like it hasn't really been for waste. It's just you gotta sometimes learn things the hard way.
For sure. And there's something to be said for making not necessarily mistakes, but just to group it in that. If you have mistakes or roadblocks that you hit or things like that, where it's just such a silly little thing that happened, but it created such a big ripple effect that like just messed everything up. It's like sometimes going through those experiences, you're just like, okay, I've learned to not do it that way, or I've learned to label things differently, or I've learned to whatever it is, right? You know, that's a good metaphor for life too. If you're just like, you learn from your mistakes, that's the best way to be, because if you're not making mistakes to learn, or you're not hitting roadblocks every once in a while to learn, how do I get past this roadblock? You're not going to get any better at what you're doing, right? That's the whole point. I mean, as someone who records audio, I can appreciate the fact that something like that happened and you had to redo it, because not on the same scale, obviously, because I don't know how many tracks on average one of your songs would have, but I would imagine it is much more than 5 or 6. Well, I can only imagine, right?
It'd be like the same thing as you record an entire podcast and you have to like call back up your guest, like, hey, we gotta do it again. Like,
yeah,
they're not gonna be happy.
Yeah, I've been blessed that has only happened once. Knock on fake wood, because actually I got a wood comb here. Thanks, Mean Beard. I'll knock on that.
Shout out to Mean Beard.
Yes, sir. But that only happened once. Shouts to my boy Kane and Cable, Fear the Beard, for being wonderful and doing that podcast all over again. And I didn't know them very well at the time. So, but yeah, no, it's like you can't have a guest on who you don't know, for example, at all. And it's like, hey, so that whole podcast we just did. Well, I was editing it and I accidentally overlapped my voice file with your voice file. So now it's just me talking to myself. Like, do you think we could, or like I've had this happen where I've had to call people to redo certain parts where they answer a question because, I've had something happen with the internet and they glitch out really bad. And it's
right.
Like, hey, can you send me a clip of you answering that question again? And it's like, it's not the same. You know what I mean? It's just so I can totally appreciate the audio issues for sure. But
we got through it and it's done. And it's coming out tomorrow. So we're all pretty stoked on that.
And it sounds fantastic, man. I mean, I'm hyped to just to hype it up now, guys. Next week, I'm going to be doing an album showcase of Hyperreals in its entirety. So get ready for that. That's going to be very exciting. We're going to be doing similar to Mark when I did your EP almost a lifetime ago. It feels like at this point, episode 201 of the Hotter Show. We're going to play the full album, and then I'll do a little talk about some of my favorite songs. So be sure to tune in for that next Thursdays, guys. We're very excited for that. But talking about hyperreals, obviously you guys, you did something cool actually this whole year leading up to the release of the album, in which the last Friday of every month you actually dropped a brand new single. So walk me through that process, because that's something really cool that I didn't when I was looking at the singles, I'm like, oh, this is cool that they did it this way. Where did the idea from that come from?
I think I'd seen bands do this. Notably, I think the band Spirit Box had been really successful with this approach, where they probably had, this is where I got the idea from, they probably had like enough songs for a full length or an EP, but instead of like putting it out as like a single and then X amount of weeks go by and then there's the EP launch, they did it like single and then sort of like dust settles, single, build the hype, and then settles, and then every so often they would sort of poke through the algorithmic dust and sort of get into your feed, right? So, and then by the end of that, they put out like, I think they called it like the singles collection or something like that. So then it ended up being promoted as both singles, and then after they turn around all that, traffic generation, awareness, promotion, they can turn around and use it again as like a secondary thing. Yeah. So it was that idea mixed with the idea that we were in a lockdown and we couldn't do a very conventional approach of like maybe a single or two, big showcase, release, concert, maybe a tour, and then we
maybe another single, who knows? Yeah,
and then the thing we didn't want basically was to like I said, spend 4 years on this album, have like a 2-month window of hype, and then it'd be over. So we're like, let's not metaphorically blow our load in 2 months. Let's just like draw it out. So
it's a chess game. Let's be strategic about
long game.
Well, then I think it paid off for you guys, because I mean, it kept you guys in my feed too, where I'm like, oh, like I'd be on Spotify and oh, hey, new single. I'm like, oh, awesome. And then it wasn't until like we started talking today, and I was like, oh yeah, that's a really cool thing that you guys did, because like some bands lately, what they've been doing, like Machine Head just did it, where they dropped a single, I think it was late last year, and then they just dropped a single, but it was 3 songs. So it's like,
oh yeah,
a lot of bands are trying different things, especially in this time period where, like, I'm sure you guys would be doing an album showcase of of some kind of like a release party or whatever you'd like to call it of hyperreals. Is that something that you're hoping to maybe do later this year, or are you just kind of gonna release it and then whenever you can get back to shows, you're gonna just kind of?
Yeah, we'll definitely have some like legacy shows for the album when we can. At the same time, we've actually been playing these songs. Like, this has been most of our live sets. Anyone who's seen us in the last 2 years have basically experienced these songs. So if we get the chance, we definitely will like give it a proper sort of send off. But we'll have to sort of see what happens.
I also appreciate the fact that it's like, like you mentioned earlier, we basically already have a full another album written, ready to start. I can appreciate kind of chomping at the bit to be like, all right, we're really proud of this, and it sounds fantastic. There's tons of great songs. I'm super excited about it for you guys, but also I can appreciate the fact that like, let's get on to what's I can totally appreciate that. Especially in a live setting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably the one that's the most on that wavelength, but we just gotta take it one step at a time. We're actually having we're having a band rehearsal tonight.
Oh, nice.
Probably the first full band rehearsal we've had since like last year, which is
wow, that's awesome.
Trippy. Like, we used to rehearse like every week, so going from every week to and then like an entire year is just like I don't even know what we're gonna be like. We're gonna be like so rusty.
Do
Or
we
so
still know how to
slow.
play? Like, what? There's some people I've spoken with, especially just, over the last year. Obviously, the pandemic has been a huge topic of conversation. Not so much the pandemic itself, but what they've been doing. And there's been a couple people that have been like, yeah, I really haven't played music like in the last year. Like, am I going to remember how to like perform? Am I going to have to relearn my instrument? Like there's a lot of people who haven't been doing that, but then there's also some people that it's like, they didn't even they don't want to touch their instrument because they're like, it's making me sad because I can't go out and do what I love to do. So it's, but it's awesome that you guys are going to be able to get to do a rehearsal tonight. I'm very, very excited for you
Yeah,
guys.
I can definitely appreciate, like, I think when the not to maybe dwell on the pandemic, but I can maybe add share one thought. I think when it was first kicking in, that sensation, I think it hit everyone of like, I don't remember what it's called, but there's that sort of like hierarchy of needs where it's like where until you feel like you have safety, you can't really work on like the higher needs of like artistic expression. So maybe that sort of hit all of us at some point. But there's a quote that's been sort of driving me home, which is something that I've probably was doing intuitively or instinctively as sort of a more of a introverted character is I'm gonna butcher the quote. It's like no great work, or the price of greatness is great solitude, or something like that. Something along the lines of great work comes at the expense of great solitude. So I've just been sort of treating it like, well, we actually have an excuse to be in solitude and to be working on stuff. So I've just been sort of treating it like now is an opportunity to explore these inner environments that I know can't explore the outer environment. So you might as well be focusing on constructive ways of using this time and other avenues.
Yeah. And like, as creative people, we're fortunate enough to be able to have that outlet, right? Or a lot of people don't have that outlet. So they've been looking for stuff to do. I mean, I've been working this entire time, so I haven't really been in solitude. I've been very fortunate on that with that, but like I can definitely, there are times when I'm like, well, I can't go see friends, so let's see if they want to do a podcast, or like, like let's get on Zoom and chat and like let's, I guess I'll tackle this thing I always wanted to. I always wanted to start writing. Let's do that. Like it's just like and that's the one beautiful thing about this, just again, not to dwell on it, but just like the one thing I've personally seen from this pandemic is a lot of people who were wanting to do creative things have started doing them. And I mean, everyone and their grandma has a podcast now, which is awesome. Like, I'm all about it. But there are people that I spoke to years ago that wanted to do a podcast, and now they're doing it. Or there's people that I know have been sitting on material for an album that are now, they're getting ready to release it. Or I always wanted to do a solo record and they're getting ready to write it. So it's like, it's something to be said for the solitude. If you're having that solitude already, use it for, if you can, use it for your advantage any way that you can. Right.
Totally.
With that being said, there's also something to be said for just living. There's nothing wrong with the people who haven't been. They've just kind of been like, I'm just gonna like live and like let's just get through this and we'll come out on the other side and be like, all right, let's get back to life.
Yeah.
For sure, definitely. Well, going back to Hyperreal for a minute with the singles, let's talk a little bit about that. So the latest one you guys dropped was Bloom. So let's maybe start there. Walk me through just a little bit as far as where the song comes from, a little bit about the recording of that specific song, any fun stories. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so this song, Bloom, had a pretty cool genesis, I would say. Most of the songs kind of start off with a skeleton, so I'll kind of come to the band with riffs and arrangement, pretty lifeless, just like the shell of a song. It takes all the guys to come in, put their spin on it, put their personality into it, put their energy into it to sort of enliven the creature or of the song. So the real genesis of the song came from an evening where I was hanging out with our vocalist Maitreya, and we were watching the film Waking Life. Have you ever seen that movie?
Waking Life.
It's like a very trippy, rotoscoped, philosophical
Okay.
kind of thing. I think if you want to sort of appreciate this song on a deeper level, go watch that film because it'll make the music video make more sense, as well as all the sort of the lyrical themes. So our kind of interpretation of that film was there was like one scene, and I'm going to butcher this. This is where it's good to have the vocalist take care of these things because he's more of the intellectual than I am. But there's a scene where there's a guy playing a ukulele, and he's sort of saying how there was like one quote. I'm gonna see if I can pull this out. But like we sleep through our lives, like we sort of go through life asleep, sort of going through the mundane routines. And when we are asleep, we're actually more awake to be free in our dreams. So we're actually like, what was it saying? Like sleepwalking through life.
You. Okay, I feel
kind of thing. So there was just this sort of duality of like how we're more like actually awake or more like conscious in our dreams than we are maybe like, and when we're actually in our what we perceive as our waking life. So we sort of took that concept and ran with it, and our concept was there's a man who is stuck in a dream, like he can't awake from a dream. So every time he like tries, he's like living through all these like nightmare scenarios, or either Google like dream meetings, you know, like there's like certain like common dream archetypes that like, you know, you're falling, or you can't run, or your teeth are falling out, or you're
being chased by someone, things like that.
Right.
Dude, I could cut a whole podcast just on that. I'm all about that.
Yeah. So there's something very primal, or, you know, it speaks to the human experience. So we thought, oh, there's gotta be, so like all the verses go through these sort of like common dream meetings, and we're basically just riffing on that. And yeah, that's really the song. It's just like talking about, I mean, the hyperrealism in general is like hyperreality, meaning like an augmented state of reality, or your consciousness state of perceiving reality. So we're sort of playing with all these different scenarios where either like artificial intelligence or, you know, all these sort of like sci-fi concepts are coming into and sort of integrating with our everyday sort of experience. And this is just one of those examples of like what would be an idea of like someone having a state of hyperreality is, oh, their reality is now like in a state of perpetual dreaming, and they can't actually like awake from this state of perpetual sleep.
Okay, I got you. Okay, that makes sense. That's cool. I like that. Yeah, no, I'm all about like the dream and looking into. I'm all about that. So that's cool. Then going on with the rest of the singles here, Pilgrim, which is one that it was the first one I heard out of the batch of them, and it was I mean it's a badass one. I mean, I like them all, but I think Pilgrim was probably one of my favorites. I don't know why. I can't pinpoint why, but I'm like, I think that's one of my favorites. So walk me through Pilgrim.
Yeah, Pilgrim is sort of like our slow burn sort of like relief track. Like it's there's not a lot of relief on the album. Like there's moments in song that kind of bring the energy down, but I think this song in general is way more relaxed. But something about that calmness or lower energy it's sort of like the contrast. Like if you have something that's really sort of soft and light, and then as soon as you give them the heavy stuff, it just sort of by contrast, it seems like it's way more aggressive than, you know,
hearing it on its own as a standalone, it's a very like, you know, it's a great, you know, heavy track for sure. But like in comparison to some of the others, I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, like that last breakdown riff could be like a 7 in the rest of the tracks, but since it's by itself, the only really moment where you're really creating that sort of explosion, it's like a 9 or a 10 on the Richter
on the riff scale.
There you go. So the Pilgrim, again, lyrically, I won't be the best person to sort of touch on the sort of societal commentary that's in there. But I can speak to its genesis again. Like, this is a song that I co-wrote with the guitarist, also his name's Matt McCabe. And he came in with that lead guitar part, or that sort of intro clean part. And I think he had some riffs or some, you know, the harmony. Like, he had that first section worked out harmonically and melodically. And then we sort of worked together to build the arrangement. So, like, we had, like, the verse and the chorus was already there. So when you have a verse and the chorus, it's just like a no-brainer to, like, draw it out. And then write a bridge, give him a breakdown, call it a day.
Definitely. So it's a badass track, and that's cool to hear. It's always I always love hearing about like how songs come together and stuff, because it just always fascinated me as a fan. As far as the next song I wanted to discuss here, which is another one that really stood out to me, which was Departed.
Yes, Departed is probably the biggest riff salad. So it's the most exploratory.
Love it.
It's probably the heaviest song, it's definitely the most technical song. So I think those first 5 songs on the record, which Departed being the second one, those really showcased like all of the little varieties of the band. But I think Departed is just like balls to the wall, just like the heaviest of the heavy we got. And live, that's a really fun one to play.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's definitely like out of the collection of the singles, it's definitely the heaviest, and it's like, oh yeah, right away I was like, oh yeah, I'm for it.
Yeah, and then there's some, I think I wrote that, or it was written around the time when the first season of Westworld came out.
Okay. I
don't know if you've ever seen Westworld, but
a little bit, yeah.
There's a lot of, I think Westworld, Black Mirror, hell, like Rick and Morty, some of these shows, like even like, you know, Futurama, they're really working in that sort of futuristic sci-fi world. So we're really just borrowing all these concepts from them to sort of build our own lore. So Departed is sort of like the Westworld theme of like, it has like the other beautiful thing I find about this record that I don't know if people are going to be able to pick up on, because it's not very obvious, and maybe it's just the way I interpret some of the lyrics. But there's a dual metaphor between, there's like the literal thing, and I think there's there's a spiritual aspect to the lyric where we're trying. What's the word? It's not a metaphor, but it's like has a dual meaning. I'm not sure what the word is I'm looking for.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, I can't think of the word either. But
it's not oxymoron, but there's some implied thing. So for this one, I love the idea that in Westworld you have these robots or AI, and they basically, one of them becomes awake or, you know, enlightened. So there's like your first sort of main connection. And then the idea of the robots being in Westworld, or the AI, or I think they're called the hosts. The hosts are sort of like these things that you would go around and kill, and you could have, you know, get your rocks off totally killing or abusing or raping, or, you know, these hosts are just there for your pleasure in this sort of simulated world, which is what Westworld is. And the idea that these robots would live over and over and over again sort of has another parallel to like the idea of reincarnation. Like maybe we are the same way, and we've been on Earth over and over and over again, but we haven't really awakened to realize that we've, lived past life or things like that. So just like those like little seeds that are in the song for me have like this deeper meaning that we're trying to get across.
The kind of like it's almost like a double entendre kind of thing.
There you go.
That's the. By the way, guys, that's what I was doing. I was looking. I'm the worst. I need like an intern who just like hangs out, and anytime something like that happens, I can just be like, "Yo, young Jamie, let's look up the."
Yeah, there you go.
I need a Jamie. Oh man, yeah, no, but yeah, double entendre. That's awesome, and I mean, it's funny you bring up. Some of the shows you because like I did love Black Mirror. I just never watched Westworld, but I'm also a huge Rick and Morty fan, so it's funny that you bring all that up, kind of the futuristic thing, and obviously Futurama too. Well, that's awesome for sure. That's great. As far as another single, I want to make sure we talk about, which is Summit. Which, real quick, one thing that I loved was when your vocalist did that performance video. Blew my freaking mind because I was like, okay, like he's very talented and everything, but I'm like, oh, like live, how is this going to sound? Right? You never really know. And then I'm watching it and I'm like, okay, he's really that good all the time. All right, good to know.
That's good to know because I think Matt had some reservations about like, does anyone really care about like? I think seeing a guitar playthrough is pretty common, but I don't think we weren't really sure if vocal playthroughs were like as interesting or as
I love it, especially if you've got the chops and you can do it. It's like I'm a big I shouldn't say I'm a big, but I'm a fan of Devin Townsend.
Right.
So like he did a playthrough. It was a playthrough for EMG guitars, and he was playing his song. Oh my goodness.
Ocean Machine.
No. Oh my! I gotta look it up. Yo, I need my intern. Oh my! I could sing you the whole song right now. It's from a while ago. I know I have it saved, so I can. It won't take me long to find. But
His last album?
No, it is not actually. It's not off Empath. It's an older song, but shouts to Empath because I love that record. It's not Devin Townsend. It's Devin Townsend Project. That's why I can't find it. Sorry, guys. I swear to God, this is going to be worth it. It's going to be a big payoff.
Oh,
here.
It's probably
Kingdom.
Transcendence. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Kingdom is he did a performance of Kingdom, and like that's it's not a super technical song on guitar, but he was singing it while he was playing it, and I tuned in to listen to Devin Townsend play guitar because I knew he was a great guitar player, but I didn't know. And he said, "Oh," I was like, "What?" Like he's really that good. I'm like, can he do the screaming though? And then he does it, and I'm like, I give up. I quit. Like, just what's the point when there's people that talented out there? I'm just like, man, why bother, right? It's just
I think the last concert I went to before the lockdown hit was Devin Townsend.
Really?
When he came through on Empath, it was probably November or December of whatever it was, 2019. That sounds so trippy to say.
Dude, well, 2020 basically doesn't exist, right?
Yeah, weird. But yeah, if you like that, if you like Summit and you like the vocals on Summit, there's a clip. We did this on our YouTube channel. There's a sort of mini documentary of all the instruments going through, and I don't know if you're gonna be able to. I don't know if you knew this when you hear the song, but we got like super OCD with some of the vocal harmonies that we did in there. Like, also shout out to our mixer Zane because we just sent him like in a stupid amount of vocal tracks. Like we had, I think for that song like Departed, just to jump back to that, there's like sort of that choir part.
Yes.
That ends up being like a 4-part harmony, like double track. So it's like we're setting like at least like 8 to 10 vocal channels all in any song. So anyways, in Summit, there's a clip where basically what happened was our drummer Steve wanted to hear one of the sections with like a female vocalist feature, and we'd heard some bands that do that, like maybe like Protest has done that, or can't remember. Anyways, so what does Matt do? He's like, "Oh, I'll just sing it falsetto," and he does the entire melody an octave higher. So I think in that one section, there's actually a clip of Matt singing. It's either a unison on the main line, or it's the main part an octave higher and an octave lower.
So is that actually him doing it? That one part on the record.
It's I could probably pull up. I could probably pull up the actual stem. There's some hilarious moments with the.
I love, because like I always want to be a singer, right? So like I love that. I am a nerd for vocal like layering harmonies and hearing just the vocal tracks to hear how they performed it, and vocal sing throughs or whatever. I am all about that. I love it. Oh,
I can pull it up. I don't know how.
Oh, he's gonna go get it. We're doing this live, folks. He's gonna go get it.
I have my microphone over there, so I'm going to have to crank it up for it to album 3. Where Post Pro.
This is live, folks.
Summit.
This is it. Look at that beautiful studio he's got going there, though. Very vibey.
This dude's. Yeah, I can pull it up because that was one of like my favorite things to do. Was like I think we spent weeks because. Once we had the guitars done, it was okay. Now it's just vocals, and I think we had a routine of like twice a week, and we can only do so long, right? Because when you're dealing with recording vocals, you probably have like an hour tops with your cleans. So we would record cleans first, because if you went rich with the heavy, you would just wear out your voice.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, we sometimes spend an entire session on just like the harmonies. So I think we'd go through, maybe do all the mains, maybe near the end of the session, once your voice is getting a little scratchier, do the dirties.
Do the harsh, yeah.
And then come back, do a whole session just on like doubling, layers, harmonies, choirs.
Harmonies.
There's we got into a lot more electronic stuff. So you might hear some like vocoder or just like little things like that are in there.
I live for all that stuff too, man. Like as a huge fan of like podcast audio dramas and stuff like that, mainly horror ones, where like they're doing a bunch of crazy stuff to someone's voice to make them sound like a demon or a ghost or something. Like I live for that stuff. So I'm all about it.
if I have more time to prep, I could show you the vocals on Departed, because there's some cool vocoders and there's some cool delay stuff we did. But here's the isolated vocals.
Taste.
I don't know how well it's going to turn out, but.
Wednesday comes, a spirit broken. We are numb, so how do we rebuild? Wednesday comes, a spirit broken.
Jeez.
We are numb, so how do we rebuild? Yeah, like, listen to that.
That is insane.
We are numb, so how do we rebuild?
Dude.
Beautiful.
That's insane. I thought he was like talented as fuck before. Now I'm just like, what? If you didn't tell me that was him doing it, I would have been like, oh yeah, they go pulled someone in, but that's holy cow. The fact that he goes as low as he does and then he goes that high like perfectly is insane. That's
range for days.
Big shouts to him, man. That's freaking that's insane. I mean, again, everybody involved with this album is super talented, next level, but just man, that you just blew my mind with that.
Yeah, I even just love hearing that stuff. Like I love hearing the stems and the behind the scene kind of stuff. Like,
oh yeah, I'm all about.
And then it's also something you can't fully appreciate. Like not to like, obviously not to like talk down like the, I don't know what I'm trying to get this point across, but like when you hear the entire album, you have to sacrifice. Like you couldn't just have all vocals because you got to keep room for the drums and the bass. You have to sort of like sacrifice these like really lush arrangements with the vocals to make room for all the other things. So it's like they're in there, but they're not really like noticeable. So hopefully there's a trend that people might find with this record is it's very, very dense. And I know from experience there's albums I've listened to that I didn't really get the first time or didn't like the first time I listened to it. I would think this might be an album you have to give it a couple times through to like find all the nuggets, but I'll let people decide.
Well, now every time I hear that song and that part's going to stand out to me. That high harmony is going to stand out to me, right? And that's kind of the fun thing about doing stuff like this, where it's like, maybe you wouldn't have talked about that at the end of place. Like, it's just like, it's cool to do that. And having I think it was behind the album or something like that Butch Vig did on Nirvana's Nevermind.
Yes.
And it was this huge clip that went around YouTube forever. I'm sure you probably know what I'm about to say.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
And it was Something in the Way. And there was a high harmony that Kurt did that, like, he plays it for a second and then he goes, whoa, what was that? And they go back. And it's like this super, super high harmony that you don't really hear in the final version.
Mm.
And I remember Butch going like, yo, why wasn't that louder? That's beautiful. Because, Kurt wasn't known for his vocal prowess, but that was a beautiful high harmony he did. And I was like, yo, what? Like, so I love all that stuff. I'm all about it.
There's a similar clip. This is one I thought you were talking about was Butch showed the solo for Smell Like Teen Spirit.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I teach a lot of guitar, and that's a song that I come across. So sometimes what I do is I show students Kurt playing it live just to sort of be like, maybe to make them feel better a little bit, because when they play live, it's just not very good. But anyways, when they play it live, the solo is like non-existent. I don't think I've really seen a live clip where Kurt plays that solo live. But Butch showed this clip of the solo guitar take, and it's a shame because what happens at the end of the solo is it fades out, right? But they recorded all of this like beautiful feedback overtones, and one of the most cool sonic swell happens like after it fades out. It's like, why didn't you keep that beautiful blooming sonic feedback that just like, but I mean, you gotta serve the song, right? So
exactly,
you
right.
can't just have like this feedback over the verse that's coming in, but yeah.
I mean, you could, but it's like,
yeah.
One more Nirvana behind the scene things as we're on the topic. There was another video that was going around for a while. It was for In Bloom. Wait, yeah. See, it's the word. Yeah. And there was again, they were breaking it down, and there was the Butch was like, and then of course Dave wanted to come in and do the harmony, and he plays Dave's harmony. They, again, you don't really hear it in the final version, but it's like, it's Dave Grohl, doing the Dave Grohl yell, and I'm like, whoa, imagine if that was just a little louder in the final version. That's
cool.
It's just like, now he's Dave Grohl. I
only associated Dave Grohl singing on those albums with like couple backup harmonies, and maybe more of like when they did like the unplugged stuff.
Yeah, and Marigold.
But I didn't know he was doing some of the heavier vocals underneath or in layer. I'll have to go back and listen to some of that.
There's only one Nirvana song where he actually did vocals, which was oh my goodness, no, I just had it on
Jamie.
Young Jamie, where are you?
There's a song by Nirvana where Kurt's not the lead vocal on.
There's only it's a very obscure song. Again, I could probably sing you the whole effing song right now. Nirvana.
Was it one of those like BBC live things, or
no? It was recorded, and it was a song it was one of the first songs Dave ever wrote, like completely by himself. No, damn it. Oh no. Oh, my buddy would kill me right now. Dave Grohl. Okay, yeah, Marigold is one, but that's not the song I'm thinking of. Because Marigold's a Nirvana song, but it's a very kind of obscure. I think I drank too much. What is that fucking song?
Was Dave the drummer during the first album? I thought he came in for Nevermind.
Yeah, he came in for Nevermind.
I wouldn't think it's on Nevermind, would it be?
No, it's not. It was like a B-side.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Deluxe.
Okay, they don't have that much stuff. Sorry guys, I swear to God, we're gonna get back to our conversation, but I need to figure this out. I'll leave all this kind of stuff in now because I find it fun. But
That's cool. I'm interested.
I'm so
I didn't know that I thought I got the vibe that Dave never like brought his songs to the table because it was like,
didn't.
well, we have Kurt, or I'm
Kurt
just the
Cobain.
drummer,
What's the point?
and
Yeah.
I can do backups. I didn't really think there was a tune that was like, oh,
it's an acoustic song,
okay, that might,
and I don't know if I'm gonna be able to. It is gonna piss me off beyond no end because the second we stop recording this podcast, I'm gonna find it.
You can do it in post. Just add a little, You just do a little cut. It was this song. Cut back.
It's in here somewhere. Oh my goodness! Well, this is bothering me so much. Oh my goodness. Well, okay. Hang on. One more thing, folks. One more thing. Foo Fighters. What was that live acoustic album? What the hell was that thing called? Skin and Bones. Okay, I got this now. I know how I'm going to figure this out. I got this.
Did Foo Fighters actually record it?
Yes, they recorded a live version of it. And the second I see it, I'm going to like mark out and lose my shit. The second I see it. It's not Marigold. Friend of a Friend.
There you go. Boom.
Friend of a Friend
Mystery
is
solved,
the
folks.
song. Oh my goodness. I need an intern. So yeah, Friend of a Friend. There is a version of it, I believe, that Nirvana recorded, I think. Now, I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But for those of you who like Foo Fighters, Friend of a Friend was an original song that he wrote while he was in Nirvana. He showed, and it's about him showing his songs to Kurt, basically. And being like, oh, maybe they're not that bad. So anyway, let's get back to what we were talking about before, folks. This is the kind of content you get here on the Harder Show, folks.
Big segues.
I spend 5 minutes trying to find the name of a fucking song from like 20 years ago. Oh, good times. But the last song that I want to make sure we touch on in the batch of singles, which, by the way, thank you for showing me that stem from Summit, because that was really, really cool to see that. And if you guys haven't seen go check out Maitreya's YouTube channel and everything, because if you haven't seen that live vocal playthrough for Summit, you are missing out, because it is really, really cool. So big shouts again to Max. That was a really, really cool performance. But the last song, of course, we have to talk about is Catalyst. So walk me through Catalyst. What's the groove of that song there?
Oh, Catalyst. Yeah, this is a lot to unpack. Okay, I guess we'll go there. That's cool. It has sort of these, like, I don't know, it hits me different ways and different times, and it's sort of like, it was kind of personal and kind of emotional, but then yeah. So we'll go down that route.
We can go into as far as you want. You don't have to try to anything, but yeah,
it's good. It's part. I think it's part of the story, and it doesn't get any easier to like to talk about. Yeah. So I wrote that song basically coming out of a surgery. So I had what do you call it? Basically, I had a tumor on my tongue, and the cancer spread from my tongue to my lymph nodes, and we just had to do the whole thing. And then I had to go through radiation treatment and the whole thing. So it was sort of me going, it was basically like a me in recovery song, or just me sort of, I wrote that piece, I think it was actually before the whole thing, but though that was sort of like the headspace of like, that's going on. And I think the inspiration for me was like writing it for the band, like there's all like the band chemistry, so it was very much like writing it for all these guys. So when you're writing it, you're sort of writing it like, what would Liam be playing on the bass, even though he's not like writing it. It almost seems like when you're sketching it out, it doesn't really matter like who writes the part. It's just like you're going to be playing it, you're going to work out what it is. It's just more like, again, serving the song. So that was sort of like the instrumental inception. And then it turns out this is probably the only time this has happened in the band history, but all of the other guys got together and wrote the lyrics together, or wrote like the vocal process, so the lyrics and the melodies and whatnot. So that happened, and then like maybe months later, once we were all sort of back in the flow of things, that was like a song that was on our radar of like what song should we include in the new album, and that's probably one of the newest songs. All the songs are written in a much earlier era. So I guess the story goes, when we rehearsed that song, it's like a 7-minute song. We got together and we had a practice room at the rehearsal factory at the time, and we got like sound checked, did a little warm up jam, and we rehearsed that song. First time we played it front to back with like no mistakes. It was just like
wow,
the trippiest experience. And I think since then it's been like it's one of the songs live that's just like, it has all the moments again. Like it's just got a lot of variety. So, yeah, it's probably the least like Hyperreals-esque in the sense of it doesn't necessarily. It has again I think there's a metaphor of like a man finding these gems, or there's again I can't really speak best to the lyrical content, but there's these metaphors that are in the lyrics if you want to psychoanalyze the lyrics. But yeah, that was just sort of the inspiration for me for that song. It's just like some of that personal history was involved in the creation process of that song.
Yeah, and a very real thing, to go through, and I mean it's a beautiful song. So I mean it's, you can really, again, now knowing that, the fact that that's kind of the history behind the song, like it. And again, I'm a fan of knowing that kind of stuff too, because it's like it can make the song hit a little differently, right? If that makes sense. And yeah. I'm glad that you were able to get that all taken care of, everything too, obviously, because I'm a big fan of your work. So
yeah,
I'm glad that
we're all in the clear, so we're good.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear it, man, for sure. And that's cool that they got together and wrote the lyrics and everything too, because like it's almost like this fun little thing where it's like kind of like, hey, I have this song, hey, we have these lyrics, and it all comes together. And the fact that a 7-minute long song you rehearse with no mistakes, I mean that's just meant to be, right?
Yeah, and I'm pretty heavy-handed with all of the happenings too, so to like come in and not ever know what happened in that room, in the genesis of all that stuff, it's always gonna be a mystery, because like I said, I'm pulling the strings, or I'm having my input, and then just to have this gift of a beautiful song completed on my behalf is just a very beautiful experience. Because I think as I've written more songs, like songs are like a gift, or like they're like a treat. Like sometimes you have to work for them, sometimes they come really easily, and this is a song that just sort of was like granted, like there you go, you've earned this.
You've earned this. Here's this great song you've earned. Yeah.
Yeah, or like you've tapped into like this like certain frequency in the bandwidth, and you just sort of like extract it, and there it is, and now it's in its material form, and it's very cool just to see it, how it all manifests like that.
That's awesome, man, for sure. Yeah, and I mean I'm also a firm believer of that kind of stuff too, where it's like sometimes you just I don't know where this came from, but it's here, and we're,
Yeah,
I'm a firm believer of that too. So that's awesome, man. Well, I'm super excited about the album. I'm sure everyone else is too, who's watching this and listening to this. We're going to again be sure to tune in next week, folks, because we're going to do the full listen through, and then I'll talk about my favorite tracks off Hyperreals. It's been fun, man. I really appreciate you diving into all this with me, and sharing the personal story behind that, and sharing the vocal stem in that, it's been fun getting to chat with you all about this all, man.
For sure. Happy to share it. Happy to be here. Thanks for the chat.
Yeah, definitely. So before we go, I told you I was going to do this before we started. I see some guitars behind you, and it's kind of become almost a staple here on the show lately. Anytime I see guitars in someone's room, I'm like, come on, let's see them. Walk me through the rig a little before we go.
Okay. The main baby is the Ibanez RG. I think Ibanez in their names 1527. Just the main workhorse. this is actually for this album, compared to our first album, this is the one where we sort of crossed over from playing 6 strings to playing
the full 7
string. And then we got there. If anyone saw us circa 2016, you'll recognize this lovely lady. This was all over the first record, the Les Paul Epiphone Custom. It's
gorgeous.
You gotta have a Les Paul. Like, it's just like, all that pure mahogany, just weight. The tone is just like in the guitar, ready to be
extracted surgically.
I think next, this is just like Liam's bass. It's just a 4-string. I just use it for lessons because I have a 6-string. It's a what?
So most
Warwick.
Kids are not gonna. You're like, why do you have a 6-string bass? What's going on?
It's a pain in the butt to show this, new students this and be like, what string am I playing on?
What is that? Why is there 6 strings on a bass? What's happening?
Yeah, so this is also Liam's bass, who I bought off of him. I think Liam has a 6-string, so he had 2 6-strings. And I think he just preferred the other one, so he didn't really have a need for it. And I was like, "Yo, let me buy that off you."
That's
or I think
awesome,
I had a 5-string, which I didn't like. It was like a Schecter 5-string. So I gave him the Schecter 5-string to sell, and then I would keep this and pay him the difference. So that's how I ended up with this Ibanez. And
that's an Ibanez, eh? Yeah, it looks like that.
I love
the
Ibanez the necks. It feels like the neck on the on the guitar. So. Mm-hmm. It's just like I can play guitar as if I'm playing on the bass and have the same response.
Yeah, are they really like going? Because I've only ever played 5s. Comparing a 6-string bass to a 7-string guitar, are they very similar with the width itself, or is it probably a little wider on the bass? I would assume, right?
It's probably wider. Obviously, you need more.
Yeah, just for the actual thickness of the strings, I assume you need to be a little wider. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would think that a 6-string is probably overkill because I don't think I've ever really used this 6-string for like anything. Maybe a solo. Like it kind of maybe just helps instead of going instead of trying to cross over spots, you can sort of grab things in a similar spot. But I could probably live with a 5-string and be happy. But you never know. You can maybe tune this to a different string and grab some harmonics or something like that. But
absolutely.
One day, what do we got? So this is probably one of my wiser investments. About the secondhand. It's a Tele.
Nice.
I think you just need a Tele or a Strat because you gotta have your Strat sound. You gotta have your Les Paul sound, and the Ibanez being the Super Strat. It sort of fills in. This sort of fills in all of the professional gigs I get. Like if it's just pop or rock or country or jazz, I can sort of this guitar is gonna fill that lane without being polarizing. Like if you
show up with that, they're gonna be show up to what carnation? No.
Funny story. When I was in school, I don't know why this came to me, but I went to a jam night, and it turned out to be a blues jam night, and I brought an Ibanez 8-string, and it didn't matter what I played. I could have been the most versed blues player of the audience, or and it wouldn't matter because here comes the shredder 8-string guy. Let's see what he can do. And
it's was 10 too many strings, bro? The fact that there's even they have 12-string guitars now that are a full 12 strings. I'm just what? I don't know. I'm not versed enough on guitar theory to be
10. I don't know, man.
I'm I get an 8-string kind of, maybe a 9, maybe. But after that, I'm come on, man. Do you really need that? What's going on?
You're just playing a bass. So it's what? Yeah. I mean, if it's going to be a bass, then cool, have it be a bass. But why don't you get a bass for that?
Right? I don't know. It's crazy.
Okay, I got 2 more. This is my main acoustic.
Yes.
That's been all over. It wasn't Odd Moments, actually. At the time the pickup was broken, so I used, I guess, is that the other acoustic is upstairs, so I can't figure that one. That was in Moments, but that's been for all of my solo stuff. That's the
I recognize that guitar. There's a video. I've showed multiple people the video. I think it was you were either at a lake or you were at a mountain looking at a lake or something, and I think you were playing that guitar, if I'm not mistaken. There was a video.
Sounds something artsy fartsy I would probably do.
You're like, checks out. That was probably me.
Yeah, I'm out in nature, in the woods, playing guitar, being one with nature. That sounds like me. And then my latest lady got a sax on my phone.
Beautiful.
I'm not going to play it because I literally, you don't want to hear me play it right now. But yeah, I've always wanted to play sax. And then a friend of mine was selling it or knew that she was going to sell it. And I got it for like a really good price. And it's like, at that price, like, come on, you can't like.
You gotta. So did you play it all before, or you were just like, I could learn sax?
I was like, I like jazz. I can play sax. No, I wish in like the high school band stuff I had done it. I played like, was it baritone or like tuba or something like that when I was in that, or like in like that's like middle school or whatever. But yeah, I always had an affinity for all those sounds, and now I have a much greater appreciation for how the hell do they do that.
Let's actually do this. Let's so maybe on the next Maitreya, maybe we'll hear some saxophone. Maybe who knows?
I've been practicing. I probably can't show you now, but I was going to do a recording with the sax, but it turns out I can't play it quite yet. I was doing a prog metal version of Neil Young's Old Man, and I thought I would replace the
harmonica,
the vocal
with
the sax, and it could work. I just haven't.
You need to do that now because now I need to hear that. So does anyone who listens to this is going to be like, yo,
okay,
what is that?
This is pretty cool because it turns out that I'll play you the original one. So I had to transpose it for the saxophone, which is like the main thing that's annoying. But it turns out that this probably isn't in standard. Okay, never mind.
I was going to say, no. That's negative on that, Chief.
I'm not going to tune it for you right now. But it turns out that the main part for, that main theme on the, if you're familiar with the song, it ends up being like the D minor feel is on a 6/4 time signature. Okay. Then it goes to D major, which is actually in 4/4. So I was like, hey, 6 + 4 is 10. What would be more prog if I made this section in 5 and it still adds up? So I don't know if you'll be able to. Maybe I can play along with it. Maybe I can sell it. But there's like a theme, there's a verse, and there's a chorus. So the main theme is in 5, and that's part where you won't really be able to tell what song it is unless I were to really.
Well, we know it's Old Man, but it's.
Okay, I think this will be enough. I think there is a slight melody in there, so you can probably get the gist. What we got? Okay, bear with the drums loading. This is the worst sound in the world is the pure drummer loading his samples as it's playing back. But I mean, what are you gonna do? That
was awesome. That's one of the coolest things I think I've ever had on my podcast, if I'm being honest with you.
Well,
I don't think I've ever had like a live
impromptu
jam along performance before. That's awesome, dude.
There you go. Happy to share. I love geeking out on these things. Like, I get so many like. I think I can have my own podcast where I just like geek out on all the behind the scenes stuff. That
I was just about to say to you, yo, let's do a podcast where you just do that for the whole time. That's awesome.
Down. That sounds like a pretty good idea. Maybe put that in the memory bank.
Yeah, man, for sure. Well, I think that's a really cool place for us to end off here for today, man. Thank you so very much for coming on and being so candid and sharing all this cool stuff with us, man. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to talk with you again.
My pleasure. Thanks, TJ.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. Listening to The Harder Show right now. Are you in a band? Maybe you're a business owner of some kind, a performer, maybe a pro wrestler, an event promoter, an athlete, or maybe you're just an everyday person who needs some photo editing done. You need a great graphic design guy, and have I ever got the hookup for you? My man and close personal friend, Mr. Jason Reese from Jaybird Digital Arts. Whether you need logos, t-shirts, stickers, tickets, business cards, banners, menu, brochures, flyers, posters, Facebook banner videos, door hangers, photo editing and restoration, print ads, lyric video editing, signs, notepads, window clings, letterhead, bookmarks, programs, magnets, greeting cards, calendars, rack cards, invitations, envelopes, pens. Jason will work with you to develop a style that is unique to you and that tells everybody just how special your business, event, or you personally are, and you will stand out from the crowd. On top of the fact that he does offer free delivery between Cobourg, Ontario and Kingston, Ontario, message him today right now for a free quote. That's right, a free quote. Tell him about your idea. You got something outside the box, he will make it happen. With great rates and service, you cannot go wrong. I've used Jason literally for everything over the past 3.5 years, and I cannot say enough good things about the man himself and his work. So contact him today on the web at jaybirddigitalarts.com or on social media under Jaybird Digital Arts. That's Jaybird digitalarts.com. You can also email him at jaybird.digital.arts@gmail.com. And always keep in mind that his business is successful when your business looks good.
All right, guys, there you have it. My chat with Mark Wylie from Maitreya. Hope that you guys enjoyed it. That was a really, really fun chat. And man, him doing that little jam along to Old Man, crazy, absolutely crazy. Just amazing, amazing moment for sure here on the show. That was really fun. And like I said, I mean, that could be a whole podcast, just him doing that and breaking that down for us. I think that'd be really, really fun. So we'll definitely see Mark on the show again sometime soon, because I'd love to dive into his solo stuff again and dive into, his teaching and how he does what he just did, which is him just kind of breaking down that song and jamming along with it and that. Like, I think that'd be really fun. So Mark, thank you very much, my man, for coming on. It is always a pleasure. And thank you so very much for listening and for watching. It means the world to me. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button or follow button, depending on how you are watching or listening. We, of course, are on the YouTube. We are on Anchor. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Bullhorn, Google Podcasts. Pretty much anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find this guy's show. And if for some reason you don't find me on your preferred listening platform, let me know and I will make it happen. I have done that before. There's at least one person listening who listens every single week that I was not on their preferred platform of choice, and I made it happen for them. So I will do that for you if you hit me up, because I appreciate the support. Be sure to like me on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, of course. I'm trying to get back on the Twitter thing a little tiny bit. So we'll see how that goes. Be sure, of course, to follow Maitreya. If you haven't checked out Hyperreels and you are listening past June 25th, what are you doing? Go check out Hyperreels. It is badass. I'll have a link in the description below if you're watching the video version, or on the audio version. I'll also try and throw a link in the description to get to their Facebook page so you can find the album. Or if for some reason you want to wait, next week I will be doing an album showcase of Maitreya's brand new album, Hyperreels, in which I will play the full album all the way through, give my general thoughts on it, and then give my thoughts on my 3 favorite songs. And let me tell you, it's going to be tricky to only pick 3. So I'm really excited about this next week. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. We got episode 300 coming up. I'm thinking, due to still the fact that we are in kind of a lockdown thing. My one original plan is not going to happen, which is a super bummer. But I'm thinking we're looking at doing some kind of a live cast. So that'll be exciting. So you guys can look forward to that. I got a really fun interview coming up soon that I think is going to be really cool. It's going to be a first for me for sure. And it's going to be a lot of fun, I think. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so very much for watching and for listening. Give you the old patented video fist bump. Boom. And, of course, the audio fist bump from my audio listeners. Boom. Thank you, guys. So do you guys hear that? I got a little foam thingy on there. There we go. That's like audio school 101. Never touch your microphone, but I do it here because I want to make sure you guys hear the patented audio fist bump. But that all out of the way, folks. Thank you so very much again for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time on The Harder Show. Take it easy, guys.